The Daddy Letters. Season 2. Letter 22. Therapy for Fleshly Passions.
Dear son, at church I heard that Mrs. Inman Graves and her husband have separated. Needless to say, upon hearing that news, I immediately thought of you. I know I don't have to remind you that a separation is not a divorce, and therefore, Mrs. Inman Graves is off limits until she is no longer Mrs. Inman Graves. If she really wants you, and it appears she does, she will try to convince you otherwise, and likely argue that her intent to divorce Mr. Graves is enough to justify you two getting together. It's not, so don't be deceived by the lust within you. I grieve for her and Mr. Graves because divorce is violence against the soul. A spiritual amputation, a scarring rash, and no one walks away unscathed, including those who love the divorcees. Divorce also publicly tarnishes the Christian testimony when it happens among believers, and casts aspersion upon the benefits of Christian living. For this, and many other reasons, God hates divorce. And so, I pray Mr. Graves and his wife will find a way to reconcile their problems and come back together. Son, don't multiply the problems between Mr. Graves and his wife by nurturing a romantic relationship with her. And don't put yourself in harm's way of a jealous husband. It is interesting that this separation occurred just when your relationship with Roll's daughter is deepening. I smell fire and smoke rising from the separation because I know the enemy does not want you to escape Mrs. Inman Graves' illicit orbit. He wants her marriage to fail, and he doesn't want you to find love with a Christian woman and possibly build another Christian family for him to contend with. This point brings me to the real reason I am writing to you. It is not to wave warning flags about Mrs. Inman Graves. It is to help you understand yourself so that you can avoid flying into any well-spun spider's web now and in the future. In the practice of medicine, a doctor may arrive at a primary disease diagnosis for a patient. Heart disease, for example. But often patients have more than one active disease condition, or comorbidities. Diabetes is a good example. Comorbidities complicate the treatment plan because comorbidity can affect the primary disease, and vice versa. For example, some diabetes medications may drive up blood pressure, or a blood pressure medication may drive up blood sugar. Spiritually speaking, human beings are born with a primary disease state called sin. Our diseased nature puts us at odds with rules, limitations, and laws, as indicated Romans 7, verse 5.
For while we were living in the flesh, our sinful passions, aroused by the law, were at work in our members to bear fruit for death.
The sinful nature does not tolerate being told, no. Give a child a rule, and you can pretty much expect a desire to rise up in that child to break the given rule, even if it does the child harm. 1 John chapter 3, verse 4 defines sin this way.
Everyone who makes a practice of sinning also practices lawlessness. Sin is lawlessness.
There is no cure for the morbidity of sin, and it plagues us with outbreaks from cradle to grave. To make matters worse, we have a comorbidity called passions of the flesh, and it chronically affects and is affected by our morbid nature of sin. 1 Peter 2, verse 11 confirms the presence of this comorbidity.
Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul.
What are the symptoms of this disease called passions of the flesh? A few are sexual immorality, impurity, drunkenness, covetousness, perversity, obscenity, debauchery, lewdness, uncleanness, murder, usury, pride, and theft. Son, your problem is not the tempting Mrs. Inman Graves. The problem is you, that is, what is inside you. The passions of the flesh are like pernicious viruses coursing through our bloodstream, trying to multiply, grow, and take control of our bodies. And the morbidity of sin makes us rebel against measures to remedy passions of the flesh. Our passions seek expression, and our sinful nature rebels against moral laws that limit their expression. In turn, our sinful nature is awakened by our law-breaking passions, and round the natures spin threatening to engulf our souls in the utter chaos of unbridled passion and rebellion against God. I say it again. The problem is not Mrs. Inman Graves. The problem is in you. And Mrs. Inman Graves only exposes the problem inside of you. So, I am not writing to warn you about Mrs. Inman Graves. I am writing to warn you about you, because even if you defeat this temptation, others of many varieties will follow. I am trying to strengthen you for life, and against the wiles of the enemy who exploits the throbbing passions within you. I am writing to encourage you to follow the therapeutic exhortation of 1 Peter 2, 11 through 12.
Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation.
You must become practiced at abstaining from the passions of the flesh that would lead you to violate the laws of God. And how do you abstain? Well, like all incurable diseases, there are proper therapies and protocols you must follow to keep the condition under control. In the case of sin and passions, the therapy is to wage war against your own passions by putting them to death as exhorted in Colossians 3, 5 through 10.
Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you: sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these the wrath of God is coming. In these you too once walked, when you were living in them. But now you must put them all away: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator.
Son, let me net it out for you. The therapeutic protocol is to, first of all, study the scriptures voraciously. There is something about a deep understanding of the Word of God that strengthens us against passions, and as well, there is a ton of advice there for you to draw upon to make you strong against sin. Secondly, fight against yourself with genuflected pleas. In other words, pray a lot against the morbidity of sin and comorbidity of passions. God offers strength to those who ask for it. Thirdly, take control of your mind, because if you don't, the enemy will. Fill your thoughts with pure, holy, wholesome, good desires. Fight bad desires with good ones. Fourth, take control of your imagination, and don't let it entertain, for a moment, how delicious a temptation might be. Chase it out of your mind. Be tempted. Admit you're tempted, but don't dwell upon the pleasure it offers. Fifth, engaging in spiritual practices regularly will help you grow in faith and strength. There are many practices to pick from, such as contemplation, solitude, prayer breathing, gratitude, and so on. Sixth, increase your love for God, because the more a son loves his father, the less he wants to disappoint him. Seventh, keep yourself in fellowship with strong Christians who encourage you, hold you accountable, and teach you to be a better person. There is a high probability that Rule's daughter can help you to become a better man, but no chance at all that Mrs. Inman Graves can offer you that. Nurture the relationships that bring you closer to God, and shirk those that offend him. There you have it. 7 steps for a man dating one of 7 daughters. There must be some cosmic significance going on here. By the way, I have additional reasons to be happy about you dating Rule's daughter. Ruel, our modern-day prince of Midian, invited me over for a slice of apple pie, the likes of which I have never had. The apples were sliced thin and layered onto the crust. The top crust was a crunchy mixture of pecans, cinnamon, pastry, and other good stuff. I think I tasted some caramel. Wow, it was good. If you continue dating his daughter, I might continue getting pie and ice cream invitations. Love you, son. Dad.